Did Islam spread by the sword? I'm Cleofe from the Cleofe podcast. Let's move on to the deep dive, but as always, don't forget to like and subscribe to help spread the word. Jack and Wilson, we'd love to hear your deep dive now.
Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're really digging into something you hear a lot.
Oh, yeah. What's that?
This claim, this idea that Islam was primarily spread by the sword. It's everywhere.
Right. That narrative, it's pretty persistent.
It is. But the source material we've been looking at, well, it offers some really detailed counterarguments. So that's our mission today.
Exactly. We're trying to go beyond just the soundbite. We'll look at the theology, some surprising history, geography, even current trends to help you, the listener, sort of unpack this difference.
The difference between spreading political power, which, often involves fighting, and spreading a religious belief.
Precisely. Power versus conviction. That's a great way to put it.
Okay, so let's start right at the beginning. If we're talking conquest, how do the sources even define Islam itself? What's the root meaning?
Well, the materials really emphasize the linguistic roots. You've got Psalm or Salam, which means peace.
Peace.
And also Silm, which is about submitting your will to God, to Allah. So the core identity is framed as peace through submission.
Right. So that idea of peace makes the whole spread by the sword thing immediately a bit, paradoxical.
It does create tension, yeah. So how does the theology handle the reality that historically there was conflict, there were armies?
Yeah, how does that work?
What the sources suggest is that force isn't totally off the table, but its purpose is really specific.
Okay.
It's limited to maintaining peace and justice or fighting oppression. Think of it like police using force against criminals inside a country.
Ah, okay. So force to stop bigger problems, to restore order.
Exactly. Force to promote peace, essentially, not to force belief on people. That's the key distinction they make.
So that's the theological rule, but, rules and reality. How does history test this? What did historians, maybe those outside the faith, say when they looked at how Islam actually spread?
Yeah, this is where some of the quotes we found are pretty striking. One of the strongest ones comes from Lacy, a noted British historian.
Okay, O'Leary, what did she say?
He spent a lot of time on this, and our source quotes him directly, saying, "The idea of fanatical Muslims forcing Islam at the point of the sword upon conquered races is one of the most fantastically absurd myths that historians have ever repeated."
Wow, fantastically absurd myths. That's blunt.
It is very blunt for an academic. It suggests he thought it was just repeated without much, solid backing.
That makes sense. Sort of like an echo chamber effect. What about the philosophy of belief itself? We looked at Thomas Carlyle, too, didn't we?
Yeah, Carlyle's interesting. In Heroes and Hero Worship, he talks about how any new idea starts.
How's that?
He says it always starts in a minority of one, just one person believing something against everyone else.
Right, that makes sense.
Then he asks, okay, if that person grabs a sword, how much good will that actually do in spreading a belief, a spiritual truth? His point is, a thing, an idea, will propagate itself as it can. You can't really force belief with violence.
Okay. But I can hear the counter-argument now. Someone might say, sure, you can't force internal belief with a sword, but doesn't conquest, clear the way?
Ah, you mean military victory removes obstacles, making it easier for the ideas to spread peacefully afterwards?
Exactly. Doesn't the sword enable the political structure that then allows the faith to flow more easily?
That's definitely part of the debate, and the sources seem ready for it. They push back by pointing to that ultimate theological rule we mentioned.
The one that limits force.
Yes, and specifically about religion. The argument is, you might conquer land, set up a government, but you cannot force faith because the religion itself forbids it.
And what's the specific verse they point to, the definitive one?
It's really central to their whole case. It's from the Quran, chapter 2, verse 256. It states very clearly, "Let there be no compulsion in religion. Truth stands out clear from error."
No compulsion in religion. Pretty unambiguous.
Exactly. So the material suggests that even if a ruler wanted to force everyone to convert, their own holy book says no.
Okay, that sets up a fascinating test case, doesn't it? We should look at places where Muslims ruled for a really long time.
Right. If the sword was the main tool, those places should be almost entirely Muslim after centuries of rule.
Let's start with Spain. That's always a big example.
Spain is Exhibit A in these sources. Muslims ruled parts of Spain for, almost 800 years?
8 centuries, yeah.
800 years of control. Plenty of time, plenty of opportunity if forced conversion was the goal. But the sources insist it wasn't universally mandated or achieved.
And they contrast that with what happened after Muslim rule ended.
They do draw a really stark contrast, yeah. When the Christian Crusaders took over later, it led to forced conversions, expulsions. Muslims and Jews were essentially wiped out or forced to hide their faith.
So no more public call to prayer at the Adhan.
Exactly. The sources highlight that absence after the Reconquista. So you have 800 years of Muslim rule without total forced conversion versus a later period with forced elimination of minorities. It's a powerful comparison.
Okay, Spain is one case. What about scale? India had Muslim rulers for centuries too, right?
It did. A huge test case. Mughals, other dynasties, ruled large parts of India for roughly 1,000 years.
Again, plenty of time and power.
Undeniable power. If military conversion was the policy, you'd expect India to be overwhelmingly Muslim. But
it isn't.
exactly.
Yeah.
The sources point out that today, over 80% of India's population is not Muslim. That huge non-Muslim majority is presented as, well, living proof that the sword wasn't the primary method. The outcome would look totally different otherwise.
It's compelling logic. And there's another example even closer to the heartland of Islam, Arabia itself.
Right. You'd think the Arabian Peninsula, ruled by Muslims for like 1,400 years, would be 100% Muslim if force was the main driver.
Makes sense.
But the sources highlight, even there you have significant ancient Christian communities. Around 9 million Arab Coptic Christians today, whose history goes back way before Islam.
Coptic Christians been there for generations.
Yeah. Their continued existence right there in the historic heartland is used as another piece of evidence against widespread forced conversion.
Okay, so we've looked at places where Muslims ruled but didn't achieve total conversion. Now let's flip it. What about places where Islam spread rapidly, but there wasn't a big military conquest involved?
Ah, the non-military spread argument.
Yeah.
This is also really central to the sources case.
Where do they point?
Think about Indonesia. It has the largest Muslim population in the world.
Right, huge number.
And Malaysia, also a Muslim-majority country. The question the sources pose is, which huge Muslim army sailed down and conquered those places to force people to convert?
I can't think of one being famous for that, like the conquest of Spain or India.
Exactly. The historical record doesn't point to a massive military campaign as the reason for the conversion of those entire regions.
So how did it happen then? Trade, missionaries.
That's the implication. Trade routes, Sufi preachers, scholars, cultural exchange. Gradual adoption through contact and appeal, not conquest. Same thing on the east coast of Africa, rapid spread. But again, the sources ask, where was the invading army?
It suggests a totally different mechanism was more effective, or at least more common.
Yes, which leads to what the sources call the real method of spreading the faith.
Which is?
Not a literal sword, but the sword of intellect.
The sword of intellect. I like that phrase.
It's about conquering hearts and minds through reason, through discussion, through attractive presentation of the ideas.
Is there a theological basis for that approach too?
Oh, absolutely. They ground it in the Quran again. Surah An-Nahl, chapter 16, verse 125. It instructs believers to invite all to the way of thy Lord with wisdom and beautiful preaching, and argue with them in ways that are best and most gracious.
Wisdom, beautiful preaching, arguing in the best way. That sounds pretty different from compulsion.
Worlds apart. It frames propagation as an act of intellectual and spiritual engagement, not coercion.
So if this sword of intellect is the real driver, we should see evidence not just in ancient history, but like now, in modern times. What do current statistics show?
This is where the data gets really fascinating. And it completely bypasses any military explanation for today.
Okay, hit me with it.
Our material cited the Reader's Digest Almanac from 1984. It looked at the 50 years prior, from 1934 to 1984.
Mid-20th century, okay.
During that half-century, Islam reportedly increased globally by 235%.
235%. That's a massive growth. What about other religions for comparison?
Christianity in the same period grew by 47%. Still growth, but
nowhere near 235%. Wow.
Right.
So the obvious question is...
Which war caused that?
Exactly. Which major war or conquest in the mid-20th century led to millions converting to Islam all over the world?
There wasn't one. There's no corresponding military campaign or empire building that explains that kind of global religious shift. It had to be something else.
And this trend didn't stop in 1984.
No, not at all. Islam is still widely cited as the fastest growing religion today. Especially, and this is key, in places like America and Europe.
In the West, secular democracies.
Yep. Places where there's absolutely zero political or military pressure to convert. It's purely based on individual choice.
That leads to maybe the most surprising statistic in the sources we looked at, the demographic breakdown of who is converting in the West.
It really challenges assumptions, doesn't it?
It does. What did the sources say?
They pointed out that roughly 2/3 of the people converting to Islam in America and Europe are women.
2/3 women. And that's interesting, especially given the common media narrative you sometimes hear.
Right, the narrative that Islam subjugates women. If that were the whole story, why would women in societies with total freedom of religion, access to all kinds of information, be choosing it in such large numbers, 2 out of every 3 converts?
It directly contradicts that stereotype. Why is that specific point considered such strong evidence?
Because it undermines the idea that women are just sort of, passive participants or victims within the faith, especially in Muslim-majority countries where maybe social pressure is assumed.
But Western converts are making a conscious, often difficult choice.
Exactly. These are women making an active, informed decision. It points powerfully towards conversion happening because of personal conviction, intellectual appeal, spiritual seeking, all the things aligned with that sort of intellect, not coercion. It's arguably the strongest proof of non-coercive spread today.
Okay, so let's try and wrap this up. If we pull together all these threads from the sources, the theological rules, the history in Spain and India, the places it spread without armies, and these modern growth stats.
What emerges is a consistent argument. The weight of evidence, according to these materials, points away from the literal sword.
Towards what then?
Towards reason, wisdom, personal conviction, cultural exchange. These being the primary drivers over the long haul. The sources really push for separating political history, which, yes, involves conquest from the history of faith spread, which they argue is a different process.
That separation seems crucial. Political power versus spiritual belief.
It is. One can be imposed, perhaps, but the other has to be embraced. That's the core message.
It's a very different lens to view history through. We can probably end with that quote you found from Dr. Joseph Adam Pearson. It kind of flips the whole weapon idea on its head.
Yeah, it's quite provocative. He said, "People who worry that nuclear weaponry will one day fall in the hands of the Arabs fail to realize that the Islamic bomb, the bomb of peace, has been dropped already. It fell the day Muhammad, peace be upon him, was born."
The bomb of peace. That's powerful imagery.
It really reframes the whole discussion, doesn't it? It leaves you, the listener, thinking about how easily history gets simplified and maybe encouraging a deeper look at the difference between how power spreads versus how faith actually touches lives.
A lot to think about there. Really fascinating material. Thanks for diving deep with us today.
Thank you for joining us for today's podcast. I hope you've gained some valuable insights. If you're a truth seeker, yearning for divine light and ready to step out of darkness, now is your moment. The truth is that Allah is the one and only creator of the universe. He has sent over 124,000 messengers and prophets to guide humanity, starting with Adam and culminating with the final messenger, Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon them all. If you resonate with this message, you might be ready to embrace Islam. Simply recite the Shahada, the Islamic declaration of faith. For further support, feel free to join our WhatsApp group. You can send us a private message there. The link is in the video description. Don't wait until it's too late. We look forward to connecting with you soon.